Thank you.
Every month, tens of thousands of people from dozens of countries are coming into this country illegally, into the U.S. It's not complicated why they're coming. Our country is rich. Other countries are poor. Why wouldn't they want to come? Our leadership class has made it obvious they won't be deported. So, of course they are. It's not their fault. It's our fault. But the Democratic candidates say there is an explanation for this that makes it even more our fault. They say migrants are fleeing here because of global warming that we created. Watch this.
More drought, more floods, more acidification of the ocean, more rising sea levels, more mass migrations of people.
We would still be at a moment in time where we're seeing shifting populations around the globe, in large part because of climate change.
We've got to remember that they are fleeing the deadliest countries on the face of the planet today, compounded by drought that was caused not by God, not by Mother Nature, but by us. Man-made climate change, our emissions, our excesses, our inaction in the face of the facts and the science. When it is that deadly, and when you're unable to grow your own food to feed yourself, you have no choice but to come here.
They've been saying stuff like this for years. Hillary Clinton and John Kerry, you'll remember, falsely blamed the Syrian migrant crisis on global warming, too, on their mismanagement of the world. But the message is obvious. It's America's fault. We're being invaded because we deserve it, and it's immoral to resist. Robert Petito is an attorney. He joins us tonight to assess this line of argument. Mr. Petito, thanks very much for coming on. So I'm a little bit confused by this argument. So we're told, on the basis of no evidence, by the way, I should say at the outset, there's no actual scientific data to show that this is real. It's just something that Beto O'Rourke thought up in the car. But if it is true and people are fleeing global warming, why are they moving to the hottest states in the country? Why aren't they coming to Maine or Minnesota? Seriously.
Well, Tucker, that part is because we share a contiguous land border through the southwest United States, which is the hottest part of the country. If they had the option of coming directly to Maine or Vermont, then of course that's where they would be coming directly. However, you can walk to Texas.
Of course they have the option. They're all over. Wait, hold on. They're all over the country. Iowa is filled with illegal aliens, but the bulk, the overwhelming majority, are in our hottest states. They can move internally. We don't have internal passports. I'm serious.
Well, what we have to do is have a border solution where people feel comfortable moving throughout the country, where we have an asylum system that works for regular individuals, where we reform, instead of having 40 years of talk on immigration, what you find a solution. Remember, when we talk about global warming, this isn't about the U.S. being immoral. This is a global issue. If you look at the migrant crisis in Africa, people aren't dying by the hundreds crossing the Mediterranean to get to Europe because they're trying to get to America. What they're doing is fleeing climate change in the equator, in the equator. If you look at Myanmar, if you look at Thailand, if you look at Southeast Asia, they have the exact same issue. It's a global problem for a global solution.
But let me ask you a question then. When was the last time you heard a Democratic politician note the truth, which is that China is by far the world's greatest emitter of carbon? So if you believe that global climate change is being driven by carbon emissions, you should be mad at China. When was the last time you heard any Democrat running for any office mention that, ever?
That was part of the Paris Climate Accords. Of course, China and India, both, the developing world, has to be held accountable and held to Western standards. They have to stop.
When was the last time you heard a Democrat say that? Say, hey, China, why don't you stop building coal plants? I've never heard a single one of them say that ever.
Obama said it continuously through his administration. That was part of the negotiations on the Paris Climate Accord. It is a global solution which is needed.
Then let them continue to build coal plants. Okay. Right. The Paris Climate Accords allowed China to continue.
Tucker, what you have to understand is China has invested more in planting forests than America has in the last 100 years. China has invested more in solar panels than the U.S. has in the last 50 years. So if China is already making
building coal plants
progress.
All right.
Look, China is transitioning to the global renewable economy. America is lagging behind. That is going to be the frontier of the future.
Right. China's the good guy. We're the bad guy.
I never said China was the good guy. I said this is a global problem that we have to address with global solutions.
They're doing a better job.
Myanmar, Bangladesh, Africa, Central America all have the same issue.
Thank you.